Yeah, you can pass them around if you want to. They're very easy to. Okay. I'm not going to read the Bible. I'm going to read it from this paper that I have here. Hi, hi. And it's in the book of, in the first chapter on Ezekiel, verse 5 to verse 10. I'm taking out some things out of context here, but it says, um, God gives us a description of four living creatures in the first chapter of Ezekiel. They are described with the appearance of the likeness of man. First of all, they appear like a man, the likeness of man. And then he says, and everyone had four faces, and everyone had four wings, and they had the hands of a man under the wings on their four sides. As the likeness of their faces, they four had the face of a man, the face of a lion on the right side, and they four had the face of an ox on the left side. They four also had the face of an eagle. So what I mark here, I want to stand out is that they look like a man, like a lion, like an ox, and like an eagle. That's what I want to talk about. Now, this is in Ezekiel first chapter, okay? And he says that the vision was given to Ezekiel by the river Shivar, okay? Now, this was in the fifth year. So a year later, on Ezekiel 8:1, it says, in the sixth year, I sat in my house, and the elders of Judah said before me that the hand of the Lord God fell there upon me. So here, God came and appeared again to Ezekiel. Okay, chapter 10, verse 8. It says, there appeared in the cherubims the form of a man's hand under the wings. Now it's called them cherubims. These beasts, the living beings that he saw, now he's calling them cherubims, okay? The form of a man's hand under the wings. Uh, verse 14, chapter 10, verse 14. And everyone had four faces. The first face was the face of a cherub, and the second face was the face of a man, and the third face of a lion, and the first, the face of an eagle. It says, and the cherubims were lifted up. This is the living creature that I saw by the river Shivar. In other words, these are the same ones that he saw in the first chapter before. Now, what's interesting here that he says on the first chapter, it says the face of a man, the face of a lion, the face of an ox, and the face of an eagle. On chapter 10, it says that he had the face of a cherub, man, lion, and eagle. In other words, ox is omitted or is not on this chapter. It says cherub. So the word cherub and the word ox is interchangeable. See, it's interchangeable. Or in other words, the ox equivalent to the cherub. See, because he uses the word cherub here. Now, where do the first time that we hear about cherubims is in Genesis 3:4, when Adam and Eve was getting out of the Garden of Eden. On Genesis 3:14 says, so he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. So you have cherubims uh, in Genesis 3:24 at the gate of the Garden of Eden, but it doesn't give you a description. It's just cherubim. We don't know. And then when they made the Ark of the Covenant, there were two cherubs on top of the ark, but they don't give you a description. The only description that you find out of the cherubims is here, where we spoke about in Ezekiel. That's the only description that we'll find. Now, if we go to the book of Revelation, to chapter 4, verse 6, this is what it says. And before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal, in the midst of the throne, and round about the throne were four beasts, or living beings, full of eyes before and behind. And the first beast was like a lion, and the second beast was like a calf, and the third beast was as the face of a man, and the fourth was like an eagle. Okay? So, in other words, on Revelation is speaking about four living beings or beasts that are described the same as in Ezekiel. It's the same description, right? And Ezekiel says that they're cherubims, right? So if they're cherubims in Ezekiel, they would also be equal to cherubims in Revelation. But in Revelation 5:6, it says, I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne, and in the midst of the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb as it had been slain. That lamb represents Christ, we know already, right? It's easy to understand. Having 7 horns and 7 eyes. So the lamb, which is Christ, has 7 eyes and 7 horns. 7 horns means full of power. Horn means power. And 7 eyes means knowledgeable. Or he can see everything, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth unto all the earth. Now, and he came, and the Lamb came and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat on the throne. And when he had taken the book, the four beasts and the 24 elders fell down and worshipped the Lamb, having every one harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of the saints. Now, verse 9, it says, and they, these 24 elders and the four beasts, they fell down before the Lamb. They worshiped the Lamb. And it says, and they sang a new song. Okay? This song had never been sang before. And they sang by the four beasts and the 24 elders. They are the ones that are singing. And they sang a new song, saying, thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof. For thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred, tongue, and people and nation, and had made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. So here he's telling us that these four living beings in Revelation are human beings because they have been redeemed by the blood of Christ out of every tongue, people, and nation, and they have been made unto God kings and priests, and they shall reign on the earth. So if if these in Ezekiel are cherubims and these are human beings and they're described the same, that means that human beings are going to take the place of the cherubims or Satan or Lucifer, because he was the cherubim, right? It says, Revelation 26, it says, blessed and holy is he that had part in the first resurrection. On such the second death had no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with them 1,000 years. And they shall reign forever and ever. On chapter 22, verse 5, it says, they shall reign forever and ever. And in the book of Timothy, it says on 2:12, if we suffer, the Christians, if we suffer, we shall reign with him. In other words, the Christians are going to reign, and these four beasts, we'll talk about the 24 elders later, but at least these four beasts uh, are described as the cherubims in Ezekiel, because eventually they will be taking the place of Lucifer. They and they claim and sing a new song they had never been sang before, and it's a song of redemption. And they claim that they had been redeemed out of every nation, tongue, and people. So they're human beings. They're human beings. The four living beings or beasts and the 24 elders. Also, they're human beings. Now, when would the when would they have been taken? How come there's human beings in heaven? Because when Christ resurrected, there was a group of people that resurrected with him, and they were testifying for 40 days, appearing to the people, testifying about the salvation that Christ gave. So they were witnessing for Christ. So when Christ went to heaven, he took him with them as the first fruits. So there, you see, Christ went to heaven and became a priest. Actually, he ends up being a high priest in heaven. Well, on earth, the high priest had assistants. He had priests that assisted him on the temple. So in heaven, when Christ went and became a priest, he took this with him so they could have the same function that the priest had on the temple on earth. They're functioning on the temple of heaven. So another time we're going to talk about the 24 elders and find out that they are uh, there was a 24 uh, course of priests that help in the temple on earth. So Christ is taking them 24 to have the 24 uh, courses. So anyway, this is what I just talk a little bit about it. We'll expand more, next time on. So.